fun. Sandolies back inside the hole they run. To crawl right back out in 1991. Whenever it's party time, party time. All who parties for, if you hear them laugh with glee, come along, drink your rum and eat roti. For the next 5 years, we control the treasury. Just because we're party time, party time. Mama, you will jump, I jump up low and shake your manifesto. Mama, shake, mama, shake. It's time to have we fun. The 5 years nearly done so. Mama, shake, mama, shake. Oh, what a carnival. If you see Rambo, join the bacchanal. Just to get your vote. R-A-N-N-P-M, begging you, bet with them at party time. Party time. It was party time once again across the land. Anyway you pass, people they got out a hand. With DJ George and Robbie in front of the band. All because of party time, party time. Them promoters, all of them had silver tongue. They made you feel their effect was the best around. With promises of utopia and song. All because of party time. Should I hear them come? I jump up low and shake your manifesto. Mama shake, mama shake. The 5 years nearly done. It's time to have we fun. So mama shake, mama shake. Was a carnival. If you see Rambo, join the bacchanal. Just to get your vote. R-A-N-N-P-M, begging you, bet with them at party time. Party time. Time was drawing near to announce the big fete. Georgie decided to make everybody sweat. Since all you're smart and I dotish, come and bet. Tell me when it's party time, party time. There was one DJ called Robbie the Tax Wizard. For mixing tunes, that man was the hardest hard. He mixed up four, construct into one real bad. All because of party time, party time. Should I hear them jump? I jump up low and shake your manifesto. Rama shake, come let me Rama shake. The 5 years nearly done. It's time to have we fun. So Rama shake, come let me Rama shake. Was a carnival. If you see Rambo, join the bacchanal. Just to operated at full blast. And the fat brigade, Lord, I catch them shaking glass just because was party time. Dirty tricks.
Yes, indeed, of course. A pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web. A pleasant good day to you. Of course, my apology for the tardiness, but I did tell you last night that I was feeling a bit fatigued. And thus, of course, my curtailment of the time that we will go on with, of course, the corridor transformation. What I didn't know is that I was so tired that, of course, I went to take a nap around maybe about 5 o'clock. But, of course, I just got up. So, of course, so tired was I. And, of course, I have an alarm, a physical, a human alarm that thought I should continue to sleep. And I had to tell them, no, wake me up when I say I have to be waking up because I have my work to do. I cannot afford, of course, to be tardy, nor can I afford or can we afford to miss one day on the corridor transformation. And of course, that is a measure of the commitment and dedication. So I read the right act, so I don't expect that will reoccur. But that being as it may, let's get on, of course, with the topic of the moment. Yes, it's about party time. I'm going to, of course, make some references as far as party time is concerned. And of course, the concept or the principle or the background to the music that you are listening to at this point. Let's say a little more before, of course, we get into the meat of our discussion tonight.
For the next 5 years, we control the treasury just because we're party time. Mama, you will jump, I jump up low and shake your manifesto. It's time to refund the 5 years nearly done so. What a carnival.
Is currently assembling a team of senior attorneys, lawyers, to defend all of the contractors as well as 10,000 employees who are employed within the organization. We're assembling a team of attorneys to offer free legal representation to all of the contractors and all of the employees to ensure that the government is stopped dead in their tracks from proceeding with this very wicked and what we believe illegal act. It will be a class action type of lawsuit, but of course we cannot go into any details with respect to the strategy. But the attorneys are looking at all of the legal avenues that are available.
And this is consistent with a certain pattern of behavior of the UNC government, whether it be the WASA CEO, WASA senior management, the governor of the central bank, several workers in the land settlement agency, and our information, they're also going for the URP workers as well as the reforestation workers. So this is consistent. This is not unusual. This is expected. But the bottom line is that we have had a meeting this morning in opposition, the government would have been there during the time that these contracts were issued. Our position is we will do what is necessary in order to protect the interests of the contractors as well as the interests of the workers.
The pieces of action will include every range possible. Class action is not the only intended action. There'll be individual actions. There's high court, there's industrial court, there's public law, there's constitutional law. No stone will be.
The PNM is currently assembling a team of senior attorneys, lawyers, to defend all of the contractors that have been, as well as 10,000 employees who are employed within the organization and the program. We're assembling a team of attorneys to offer free legal representation to all of the contractors and all of the employees to ensure that the government is stopped dead in their tracks from proceeding with this very wicked and what we believe illegal act. It will be a class action type of lawsuit, but of course we cannot go into any details with respect to the strategy. But the attorneys are looking at all of the legal avenues that are available.
And this is consistent with a certain pattern of behavior of the UNC government, whether it be the WASA CEO, WASA senior management, the governor of the central bank, several workers in the land settlement agency, and our information, they're also going for the URP workers as well as the reforestation workers. So this is consistent. This is not unusual, this is expected, but the bottom line is that we have had a meeting this morning, and in opposition, sorry.
Yes, indeed, of course. These people never fail to, of course, attract laughter. It is ludicrous. It is asinine. It is opportunistic. These political kobos. I say political kobo without fear of contradiction. You see, when they're talking, listen to them carefully. Listen to them carefully and you will be discerning. I keep telling, of course, the audience of Trinidad and Tobago that are either on the corridor transformation, on the ground report, and of course on the other program that we consider to be the Observer. Listen to them carefully, you will get your answer. I said this morning on the ground report that there is something more sinister when they come up with, of course, the number 10,000. And, of course, push that in front, when in fact we are talking about 300 politically appointed contractors. Now, listen to how they try to cover up, try to commingle with a straight face. And Penny herself, of course, recognizing the folly and the attempt to mislead, have also found herself in the commingling, so that the ordinary person who is out there and listening to them will be none the wiser based on how they would have, of course, projected the argument for what they call 10,000, that is really 300, and of course 300 politically appointed persons. You see, our research has shown that all of the contractors that today suddenly have a bleeding heart for, not the 65,000 persons, whether directly or indirectly, that was, of course, affected by the entire cabinet decision to close down Petrotrin. No such luck these people would have had. And I want to say that whilst, of course, the 2020 election came and went, those very persons in the southwestern peninsula, over 65,000 directly and indirectly, about 5,000 to 9,000 directly, but the defense line communities, the people who would have had their groceries, the people who would have been selling haberdasheries, the people who would have had, of course, their, what I consider to be roadside food vending, the persons who would have had their bars and restaurants, and would have been affected negatively because they don't have the workers on whom they depended to participate or patronize their business, and therefore they had to close down. They didn't care about that. At one time, of course, the Southwestern Peninsula was considered to be a ghost town, whether it be whole communities such as Labre, whole communities such as Faizabad, whole communities such as Paliseco, and we can go on and on. No, they didn't have that. They didn't have such a sympathy and empathy. So that is why it is appropriate to call them political kobos and therefore opportunists. And they will pick at the cadaver. They will pick at the skeleton to see what flesh they could get, just like a kobo, to get, of course, political currency, a currency that is dead, a currency that is worthless, a currency that has left them for a very long time. Over 100 persons that they normally would depend on election time have gone. And of course, I'm sure others are leaving. That is why they would have had a meeting, a special convention at the Port of Spain auditorium of the Port of Spain Town Hall, because they wanted a smaller space in order to accommodate a group of persons so they could say it was full. Understand that. So I want to tell you that had, of course, less than 1,000 persons incidentally. But the point I am making here is that the sudden love for CPEP workers and WASA workers and forestry workers and URP workers is superficial and superfluous and politically motivated or opportunistic. I want you to listen to, of course, these misfits once again, because I'm coming up at the end of it all with a plan. But before all of that, let me formally say a pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web. Once again, a pleasant good night to you, and my apology for my tardiness tonight. But of course, I'm sure that at the end of the program, as per usual, you will feel comforted to know that you would have gotten information nowhere else, but at the same time you will become much more informed as to some of the issues that are at stake, or put another way, some of the issues that are relevant to the particular topic that we would have dealt with tonight. So you understand why, of course, I use Bali's party time, because they wanted to try to force another election. They want to say that, of course, they're hitting the iron while it's red in order to try to topple the present administration. You see, they did it, of course, in 1991. Yes, 1991. After the 1986 trashing of the PNM to the 3-3. They did that, of course, to who? To Robinson. They did it again, of course, to Bazio Pandey in the 1818 scenario, or just before that. And of course, they did it, of course, to Kamala Prasad Bisesa in 2015. And of course, in this particular case, you have a group of persons on the one hand who will continue to say that is a new PNM because they have, of course, a female leader. That was part and parcel of their propaganda matrix in order, of course, to gain government. That's all they are concerned with and are living for. That is the reason they try, in other words. They live for only to be in power. But when they get into power, we have seen that they abuse and they accuse, but not themselves. And they, of course, engage in misbehavior in public office. And they could be as corrupt can be, as they abuse and misuse the resources of the country, as they raid and they pillage the resources of the country, and of course misuse for their personal and or their what is considered to be nepotistic agenda, friends and family as well. And of course, always to satisfy party opportunistic, or put another way, party gormandizers, greedy, avarice individuals, or who would stop at nothing and tell us in non-certain terms, for example, PNM people supposed to get things too, and all of that. We know that, but there is a limit. And you will hear Penelope Beckles and her argument for forming this cadre of lawyers to defend the indefensible. Let me put it that way. Yeah, to defend the indefensible. You'll hear her say, that is par for the course. That is normal. That is expected. But if that is expected, what the hell are you doing there? Listen to her, and you will understand where I'm coming from in terms of the understanding that when your party wins the elections, those who were there before have to get out, make room for the incoming party, because these positions are politically appointed positions, and therefore all, without exception, must get out. And I want to commend Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the UNC and the coalition on this occasion. They understand now, as opposed to 2010, when she was said, and we were up in arms against Kamala Persad-Bissessar. How the hell you could keep URP workers so long in office? How you could do that? And you win, and saying that, of course, do not be harsh to them. Leave them there because they have to eat and so on. But whilst that was happening for 3 years, they were undermining, because they were political appointees and whose objective, whose purpose was to get the PNM in office, whilst of course the UNC kept them and give them a bread and butter, because they said that they were kind, they were more kinder and would not be, of course, as belligerent. They mashed them up. So now that they have learned their lessons, the PNM vex. But we will go to the lines and then get back to that, because we always give way, as we say on this program, to, of course, our callers. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
A pleasant good night to you, Uncle Lennox, and to all your listeners, and to share the life in all sundries, east, northwest, and south, and in international market. Uncle Lennox is asking, and on behalf of his request, I'm echoing his sentiment, 40,000, please. And if, since India removed the cent from the circulation of this country, you could give us 25 bulbs in order of 1 cent. So, Uncle Lennox, you miss out one person. You remember in the Ministry of Finance, it had one Alison Lewis or what? Some Lewis?
Lewis, yes. Alison Lewis, yes, yes.
Yes.
Who ended up on the board of NIDQUAN as well.
Yeah.
But these people are blight. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I listen to you. Go ahead.
No, I just say yeah, blight and greedy. They also on the board of the bank, Republic Bank.
Republic Bank, yes. Yes.
Right.
Holden.
That's the person you're talking about, right?
Yes.
A bunch of blights and thieves.
Antoinette.
Yeah.
Antoinette, I claim what I'm going to say. I don't want your protection. And I want them to send a letter. And I hope that they put me before a PNM judge. And I want them to take Patterson or Peterson, $35 million man, to fight the case. No problem in that. Because here what's going on. Yeah, that same Lewis, you know, Kakent and Lewis, they was in love. So here what's going on. When should they make the mischief in releasing funds for the United National Congress Party to get a financial release from the central bank? What she do? She make mischief left, right, and center. So I say, send home all their mother so-and-so with forthwith, because they serve the wrong interest and they're not genuine in serving the country. And here is the next one. I want you to answer how it is that Mark Lupon and she get $135 million, and what is the asset and the collateral they put up. So that is our next investigation. I would like the finance minister and the minister of that will be public administration, right?
Yes. And of course, the Attorney General.
And the Attorney General to investigate and bring a case of, see what the findings are. When I mean bring a case of what is the findings. Because, you see, Penelope Beckles, I want to ask her, who is the $4.1 million man, right? And all of them, because first start going, he, right, do a Chatham youth camp. And when I pass by with the people, and I say, that's the youth camp, or the pass there, or the what's that? The bush cover everything, and it's on top of a hill. Eh? They opened with $28 million gone. And I would like to say on your program tonight, Uncle, and I might be a little lengthy tonight, but my crow is full. I would like to say thank you to the independent senator that only had put country and the taxpayers' money first, that only defend the public purse.
My prediction this morning came to pass.
Yes.
Well, you see, Andy was saying he is in doubt. I said, no, you see, the public anger, they had to consider that would have come against them or at them. That is the only reason why they, of course, at least that 4 was given out. I didn't see it, and I said I would not look at it. I will wait for somebody to say it. And of course, thank you very much for saying it on this program. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I apologize to the rest of callers and listeners who want to get in. But I just want to clear up this, because when they do wrong, I was the first to highlight it. Now, as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, the Republic, I thank you all for coming together and passing laws that protect our treasury and our money. So, because that money could give at least 63 single mothers for a month a baby grant to buy milk for them, right? To start with. So that there's one set of people we can still help, and you see where the money coming from. So the next one, I want to know where Naikwan and all our money they're owing. That is the next set. When it comes to the treasury and we get it back, we could put it and reinvest it in petroleum refinery and open it back to get our sovereignty and bail us out with products. So, Uncle Lennox, once again, with your kind tolerance, I thank the Senate and everyone, those who voted, those who abstained, and who...
All right, I want to ask you that part. What did the government bench do?
The government bench?
They
abstained.
They abstained or they voted
the
for
opposition. The opposition. All of them abstained.
Right. My prediction went through then, my absolute position.
Yeah, because they said that they will never say nothing, but they say abstain, so they will carry no sin. But
Yes,
I will
right,
call
yes.
back to deal with them, that bunch of crabs behind your back.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, people, I'm sorry to say it once again, but I did not see it. But I said this morning that the opposition will abstain, as I did with the first vote in the lower house, because they will not say, because that is really their intent. They will not support it based on their argument that is for a colleague of theirs, and somehow the measure is to target that colleague. But they know how the population feels about it, and therefore they can't say no to the measure that was introduced by the government. It was so flawlessly reasonable and justifiable that they could not have, of course, said no to the measure. So what they did, they decided to abstain. I said so on Friday before the vote was taken. I said today that in the Senate, the independent senators will get the 4 at least from the independent bench, the government that is, whilst the opposition in the Senate will abstain. Well, I'm just getting confirmation. I've not seen it, I didn't listen. Remember, I tell you I was sleeping whole evening. But of course, I feel delighted, not vindicated, but my ability to analyze situation like this is always what I consider to be on target. Because you see, it's human beings and human situations you are dealing with. So, but both of them would have, of course, engaged in supporting the measure in the case of the independent, and those that abstain in terms of the opposition, they do it for the same reason. They did it for the same reason. And the reason is they don't want the wrath of the population to descend upon them. How is it? How does that apply in the case of the independent? Well, let me tell you. If they had only said, because they had only one choice, well, two choices, yes. They had to either vote for it or vote against it. You know what I say? They had to vote for it or vote against it. And voting against it would have meant that the population would have been on their tails. All of the criticisms from not just the government, but from the wider population, they couldn't sustain that. They would have had a hard time entering the parliament. They would have had a hard time going home. They would have a hard time. I'm not saying that violence, I'm not talking violence here, but I'm just saying that people would, of course, express their disapprobation. They would have expressed their chagrin. They would have expressed their disappointment. So they had to take the least, even though, of course, it would not have been what they would, under normal circumstance, would have done. But they have to show publicly that they would have done the right thing. The PNM, on the other hand, being abstaining, would also show that they are doing the right thing, or put another way, reducing the amount of criticisms that they would have gotten from the public, so they decide to abstain. Common sense. Really, at the end of the day, that transpired there to, of course, come to such a conclusion. So, I don't know what Andy will tell me in the morning, but of course, he was of the view that the independent would have stuck their grounds as they did elsewhere in the other measure that they had to vote upon, that is to say, the Children's Life Fund. In this case, of course, as you know, they had to vote on the measure to limit a prime minister taking office, and they established a tier system. If you only, like Stuart Young, less than a year, you get a third of the pension. And if, of course, a little more years you spent as prime minister, you get a half. And if you spend a little more, you get 2/3, because 2/3 is more than a half. And if you spend a little more than that, you then get, of course, the full salary concomitant with the salary of the prime minister at the time, because you don't know when it will shift in the future, but whatever salary it would have been at the time, if you would have spent at least 5 years or more in the office of prime minister. And that was a fair one. The population knows that, the population understood that, and was waiting with bated breath to deal with them. So they found a way out. The system itself gave them a way out. But I want to say that is not a genuine position. Right? What transpired is that they took the vote and they acted in that way, but it wasn't genuine. That's the point I'm making. How do we know it wasn't genuine? Because of the argument. If you're saying that that piece of legislation is to attack, is to, of course, is to address one of your colleagues, that by itself tells me that you acted, of course, contrary to what you say on the floor of the parliament, in the chamber of the parliament, as far as, of course, the ultimate vote is concerned. So there is a contradiction. So therefore, you must be clear and discerning. So I thought I should address that one time as the caller witnessed, of course, what transpired in the Senate today on the question of the amendments to the Prime Minister's Pension Act in Trinidad and Tobago. So I hope that is cleared up. But let's go back to of course, what we started with. Let's see again, of course, these people, and then we will continue, of course, to show how opportunistic and the level of Koboism that they engage. Yeah, Koboism, predators, opportunists, who, of course, will snap and eat away at any political skeleton because they want to try to see if they can do like the PNM in 1991, like the PNM in 2001, 1818 scenario, and the PNM, of course, in 2015, and the PNM in 2020. They believe they could do that because on each occasion, they were talking about a new PNM, and they start with that narrative already. Our job is to disabuse and to educate and to, of course, bring the facts as they are. But let's go straight to that press conference where, of course, they held to, of course, lick their wounds and at the same time try to engage in subterfuge, misinformation, disinformation, innuendos, and outright lies. Let's hear them.
The PNM is currently assembling a team of senior attorneys, lawyers, to defend all of the contractors that have been, as well as 10,000 employees who are employed within the organization and the program. We're assembling a team of attorneys to offer.
So notice, this Marvin lady, Marvin Gonzalez. Notice what he said at the beginning. You see, a person who is dishonest, as they say, in this case, a liar doesn't have a good memory. So he started with what? The contractors, political appointees. Then, of course, he corrected himself by saying, of course, the 10,000 workers. How are you protecting the 10,000 workers? You see, 10,000 sounds egregious for their narrative. It sounds, it makes one, of course, wonder all them people that these people are going to put on the breadline. That is the intent. And I said this morning on the ground report, it's something more sinister. And we will come to that. We'll come to that. Because in this very press conference, you will get an idea as to what that sinister intent is. So let's hear him again.
And the program, we're assembling a team of attorneys to offer free legal representation to all of the contractors and all of the employees to ensure that the government is stopped dead in their tracks from proceeding, as well as 10,000 team of senior attorneys, lawyers, to defend all of the contractors that have been, as well as 10,000 employees who are employed within the organization and the program. We're assembling a team of attorneys to offer free legal representation to all of the contractors and all of the employees to ensure that the government is stopped dead in their tracks from proceeding with this very wicked and what we believe illegal act. It will be a class action type of lawsuit, but of course we cannot go into any details with respect to the strategy. But the attorneys are looking at all of the legal avenues that are available.
But of course, class action, just in case you're getting confused, a class action lawsuit really is having people with a similar concern all together. So if it's 100 of them, 10,000 of them, you put the case together for all of them. That is what that is all about. Of course, it is regularly practiced in India, class action. And of course, I know that here, whilst it's not well established as far as our jurisprudence is concerned, but of course, it's not that it is not unheard of. So that is what that is about. Bringing everybody together and making one case. That is what they're saying. But we know that that is an impossible journey for these nitwits. Maybe they need a fella like probably Ramesh Maraj, who can, of course, have of course done things like that already. But or Ramdeen, as the case may be. But let's go further with this, what I consider to be Papi show. Papi show, not of the people, you know, but Papi show of themselves because of their desperation.
And this is consistent with a certain
Let's go to the line. Pleasant good
Hello,
night
good
and
night.
welcome to the corridor.
Yeah, Lennox Smith.
Yes.
There's the tire man boy.
All right, yes, man. How are you going?
We said, but let's say we are called.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'm on.
You know,
I'm on air now, so if you have to say something that may not be may not be personal, it's all right. But if it's personal, yeah, wait until after night.
Live?
So yeah, I'm live right now. Yes.
oh,
so
well,
I-
it's along the line that I think we'll talk about now.
Okay.
A partner by me who was to crane work and thing now, for crane and the transport now.
All right.
Come by
Okay.
me to the so I could call you back after.
Yes. After 9:30.
All right, I'll call you back.
Okay. Right. Yes. So I didn't want to expose you unnecessarily. All right.
Yeah. But I just talk clean all the time, man. That's nothing.
All right. Okay, brothers. Yes. Yes. So people, that was of course a call that wasn't meant for the program, and we like to of course focus on program calls. So let's continue with what Penelope Beckles had to say.
pattern of behavior of the UNC government, whether it be the WASA CEO, WASA senior management,
Let's go back a
consistent
bit.
with a certain pattern of behavior.
Legal avenues that are available.
And this is consistent with a certain pattern of behavior of the UNC government, whether it be the WASA CEO, WASA senior management, the governor of the central bank, several workers in the land settlement agency, and our information, they're also going for the URP workers as well as the reforestation workers. So this is consistent. This is not unusual. This is expected, but the bottom line is that we have had a meeting this morning.
This is not unusual. This is consistent. Why would she say this is not unusual? This is consistent. Yeah, I heard her when she said, of course, a pattern of behavior. But of course, she ascribed it to the UNC. I submit to you, just as Gonzalez had in the beginning of his presentation, difficulty in bringing out of his mouth the 10,000 and had to start, of course, with the contractors. If it is that you're really concerned about 10,000 workers, one would have expected, for example, the order of concern would have been the reverse, meaning that you're so concerned with the 10,000, you'll call the 10,000 first and not the contractors first. But notice they call the contractors first. That is important. That may be lost or not observed by many, but with a fellow like me, you have to be very careful. If I am concerned about a situation like that, those who are more affected, I will call them first, not the contractors in this case. But let's go to the lines. Let's go to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, Doctor.
Good night, my friend.
Yeah, good night, Trinidad and Tobago. Good night, worldwide. Doctor, these people beat back Tommy Joseph, you know. Yeah.
You make me laugh there, boy.
They make Tommy Joseph look like, yeah, they make Tommy Joseph look jokey, boy. Yeah. Them,
They
them,
make him look
them more
serious.
jokey than Tommy.
Yeah, they make him look
Huh?
like he's a serious man. Having all them
Yeah.
jokes that them giving. I hear you. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. All right. When they win election, right?
Yes.
It's thousands they send home one time.
Yes.
After that, they send home Petrochin, more thousands, right? We talking about no 10,000. We talking about thousands of people them send home, right? They didn't have no problem with that. Good?
Yes.
They want to privatize this, they want to close down that. They still have workers to send home. Numeric points. As you do a little stupidness, take away your permit, send you home.
Yeah.
Them was sending home, that was the send home government. So what them really talking about?
And mind you, the way how despicably they did it, Rowley was up and down the country saying, well, you know, when you are restructuring and when you engage in exercises like these, there will be some displacement. In fact, they coined a term in the public service. Here we start to say, not a single gazetted worker was dismissed. In other words, he is saying that those persons who are unionized and who came through the system and working there for years, they couldn't touch them. So he called them gazetted workers. Whilst all the contracted workers had to leave. And in fact, they said that it's only contracted workers. That is what they said. Only contracted workers left. Well, them workers that they're talking about, apart from political appointees, are contracted workers. But go ahead, my friend. I just wanted to develop and to reinforce your point. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I see something wrong with them people, man. You know, because I mean it's glaring.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a group of people who in no shame, they don't care, they just as I said before, when somebody drunk in and they see a feather, them going and hold on to that feather and that feather going down, you know.
Oh yes, so you're going down with that. They bring down that fella too. If it was a fella, they bring down that person too because they're drunk in.
Yeah.
They care.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And you see that is why them hold. You see that 10,000 and all. And I mean, anybody with a little common sense, right, will know what Miss Kamala is doing.
Yes.
Anybody with a little common sense, because you must move political appointees because they will undermine you, right? And me no big educated man, but I don't see through that already. So I don't know what's wrong with them people who them trying to fool. You understand? Anyhow, doctor, you stay strong, brother.
Thank you very much, my friend, and well said. But I want to say about the 10,000 and the scenario. What they did, they sent home the contractors with a month's pay, so they have the pay. I assume that that money in it would be, of course, enough to pay their employees. The 10,000 that they are talking about. And it is clear that that will give the government time to replace these contractors. It's obvious. That's why they give them a month. And in quick time, of course, they install their contractors so that the same workers can now benefit. That's what that is about. But thank you very much, of course. For let me just take up this. Yes. Sorry about that. Caller from Laventille, call back. I wasn't getting you on the system. I was getting you on the handset, and you know I prefer to get you on the system so that you could have a better let's say audio than on the handset. We have to put to the microphone, and both of us are sharing the one microphone when, of course, the system is there waiting to accommodate. Unfortunately, I don't have a waiting system, so when one person is on, the other person is heard on the handset. Right. So now we have it. Now we can go. Now we can go forward. A pleasant good night, my friend. Sorry about that earlier, but I had to cut you off the handset and to get you on the system. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, good night, Mr. Lennox. Good night, good night.
Yes,
And good night,
good night to
everybody
you.
in the life.
Yes.
And good night, Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Lennox, listen now.
Yeah.
I watched the parliamentary.
Uh-huh.
And Mr. Lennox, listen now, man. This place crazy, you know. PNM, that's a mad people, you know. I think the commissioner of police will have some serious work to do, you know, because the kind of the compilation of evidence that the government currently have right now. And boy, I don't know. Them fellas might get a lifetime in jail. I'm telling you. Because the thing I saw that was happening in the parliament today, and the kind of evidence that they was bringing out, but they say they naming names right now. They go leave that for the other house. You understand? So I suppose they mean that is for the members of parliament, and not so something.
Yeah,
I
the
know
lower house would be the
lower house,
other
yeah,
house
right.
is the parliamentary representatives, yeah.
Right. But Mr. Lennox, if you see the kind of thing come out of the speakers in their mouth, and they had a young boy called Rashid today, boy, he was excellent.
All right.
That little youth man was really excellent. That youth man is about 24, 25 years old. That boy talk some kind of thing there. Boy, I real proud of him. I real proud of him, boy. And Mr. Lennox, I telling you, you see them fellas and them bam bam, it's clapping like a church service right now. I'm actually not telling you, you know, because the kind of thing that came out of them are the speakers and their mouth, boy, is amazing. You see, I seen that picture, the gang of skunks I seen in the back there, especially the one who look like a crapo. You understand? And the light kind of cream shoot. You understand? Yeah. I watching them, you see them making a jail for sure. I guarantee them making a jail. Because the evidence
we did say that on this and elsewhere that of course it's a criminal enterprise that Rowley had put together, birds of feather flocking together. What they attempt to do is to save their backsides by of course attempting to concoct some 10,000 persons being affected by of course an illusionary, what I consider to be dismissal or retrenchment. But that will soon, of course, dissipate. And at the end of the program, I will tell you if it does not, or they are successful, one way or another to, of course, incite. We have a we have a countervailing strategy that I have no difficulty in, of course, unveiling tonight. But go ahead.
Well, listen, one more thing, Mr. Lennox. Sometimes but in that same parliament I saw today, you know. Five members of the opposition and they're voting for the bill, you know. 5 of them, you know. I was surprised. I thought the government might
5 on the opposition side? They didn't abstain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other one abstained because there's 6 of them. It's 6 of them.
Right. Well, I saw 5 people agree with the government. So
no, if it's 5, you're saying the government side and not the independent. Because my information I got earlier is that
sorry. 5 of the independent. 5 of the independent.
All right, good. I know
5 of them
because you can't tell the difference. You're thinking that them is opposition too. So I understand your confusion.
Yes. Correctly so. Yes, right. You're right.
Yeah, okay.
Right, yes.
Yeah. They conducted the last time. Yes. All right, no problem. That is understandable and, of course, is acceptable. Thank you very much. Of course, caller. Yeah. So let me just take this off and call back. I know Mr. Sandy Grandi is calling, but of course, I had to cut him off from the handset so that he could get on the system. So you could call back now, Mr. Grandi, the person who was talking earlier from Laventil. Well, he has gone, and now we have the line is now open. One line, of course, 337-6940. One line 337-6940. Let's go back, of course, and hear some more of this hilarious asinine, what I consider to be mental, cognitive, and cerebral decline collectively, or put another way, I like to use that term, manic depressive psychosis group of individuals. They are victim of that manic depressive psychosis, which means that they have a spontaneous disconnect with reality. Spontaneous disconnect with reality, yeah. Manic depressive psychosis. That is what is happening to them. And they're trying to manufacture, of course, but in their case, they're manufacturing all kinds of scenario to try to throw mud on the wall, for example, and hoping that something will stick. So they come up with, of course, 300. They convert that into 10,000. They convert it to 10,000. And notice how they have difficulty now that they have to go before the court, where they have to, of course, talk the truth. And the court will summarily dismiss them if they don't talk the truth. Something like Imsbert. Because Imsbert was saying all the time, with respect to the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority that was summarily, of course, withdrawn by the present government. But he was there, and he was saying, of course, being, of course, aggressive and belligerent, and saying that, of course, they have to, of course, conform, and that civil servants, whether they're in the BIR or customs, they have to either make a choice, stay on, go somewhere else, or get out. That's what he was saying. That when he went to the court, he embarked, in order to justify the implementation of that particular measure into law, he had to say that the amount of revenue that he expects it to collect and what will be lost as a consequence. And because the courts know that the executive's role is to, of course, firm up, to take care of, to manage the economy, and to make sure that their obligation to citizens, whether they're in the public service or acquiring goods and services outside of the public service, that they have to find the money. Well, the court said, well, all right, I understand you. So in other words, I'm saying he gives one story outside, plain, of course, big and bold and massive and large, but in the courts, he has to speak the truth. Well, it's the same thing here. They know if they're going to court, they can't say that 10,000 people were out of work. They will have to confine themselves to those persons who were contracted with the government. The workers and them, the 10,000 that they're talking about, would have been employed by those contractors, those 300 contractors, forming themselves into teams. And they would be operating teams so that they know they can't go there and say that 10,000 persons and bring this 10,000 talk. They could only talk about the contractors who had a contract and they believe was unfairly withdrawn. That's all they could do. But in order to, of course, keep the political line and to keep justification to the rank and file of the PNM and to fool those persons who they believe are stupid, and to give them some kind of hope that that approach will get them into office right now, and everybody with a modicum of common sense knows they're living in a fool's paradise. And our job is to let that 10,000 know that that is nonsense, hogwash, innuendos, misleading, as well as, of course, a figment of their collective and individual imagination. Let's go to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
I had to put a handle on this cup now. So let me start over. Good night to you, Mr. Professor, Dr. Lennox Smith. Time for me to put a handle on that cup now, man, because I want to make sure I hold it properly when I'm moving about. Well, I want to make it quick, Lennox.
Go ahead.
I realize why these people are getting anyway they're getting on. Right now, this government interfering with their pockets, their money. Because when PNM was in government recently. The mayor point forward, the MP point forward, and councillors, all of these people them had CPF contract. Because one of my partners did a video and that went viral all over the place. Even on the workers, the workers platform who and they used to share the program at that morning.
Yes,
that,
yes, workers platform.
Right.
Who
Right.
they say gone rogue. They say gone
Right.
rogue, but go ahead, yes.
Right. He too used to be sharing the live that my partner did, where he called people name who used to be getting CPAP contract. Until they tried to shut him and up, he must take down the video, and he didn't take it down. They shut him. That is what going on there. These people and them have a lot of CPAP contractors, and this government today interfere with the CPAP in them pocket. So that is why they get on the way they get on. But Lennox, I will be very happy to see the first silver bracelet go on Carl Inberg and then Keith Rowley and the rest of them. I want to pray to God that I live long enough to see this happen, because you know why? Too long I've been telling people in Trinidad and Tobago, if you do not set the trend from a high level, a government level, where corruption is concerned, you will never solve this corruption problem in Trinidad and Tobago. You have to lead from on top. And I pray to God that Kamala, together with the Attorney General, John Jeremy, make sure these blue lights and red lights and white lights bright enough for these fellas and them to see when the silver bracelets go on their hands. And they will be marched straight into jail. And the remainders, when the time passes on for them to see the maker, the remainder of the body remains in that cell. These people they need to get 1,000 years plus in a prison. That is how serious this thing is. Locked on our listening.
Yes, my friend. Yes, my friend. Wonderful analysis, because you slightly, of course, not totally preempted my last stance as to the true sinister agenda that they have. You mentioned part of it there, and I want to tell you, go to the top of the class because you understand. And that is, of course, let me just reiterate that the agenda to try to manipulate and exploit these people, and talking about 10,000 is merely, of course, to cover up, to obfuscate, to exculpate themselves from, of course, criminal and civil prosecution. But I will deal a little more with that in my closing remarks tonight. But let's, of course, get to the substantive matter tonight. So we have established that no way they could go and represent the 10,000 workers. No way they could go and represent the 300 contractors, because there is, of course, a contract that they gave them just before and on the cusp of the 2025 April 28 general elections, which they lost magnificently. They lost. And of course, they are yet, of course, to emerge from the beating, from the political flagellation that they got. To flagellate is to beat, to whip that they got. So they are coming up at the same time, hoping that they can cover up and generate. I say I'm going to wait until the end, but let me say I'll use the word discord in the society. That is what they intend to do. But I'll elaborate a little more later down the road. Let's go, of course, and hear the conclusion of this video that they made. All of them huddling and, of course, competing with each other to get the mic.
In opposition, the government would have been there during the time that these contracts were issued. Our position is we will do what is necessary in order to protect the interests of the contractors as well as interests.
Let's say that again.
Contracts were issued. Our position is we will be owning. In opposition, the government would have been there during the time that these contracts were issued. Our position is we will do what is necessary.
So notice, she's talking about when the PNM was in government before the 28th of April. Let us get clear. Let us get pellucid. Let us establish the lines of demarcation. Yes, let us not waste time. So she's saying that the government that was there that issued these contracts, notice, it is not convenient for her to say in what circumstance, because the present government is saying that those contracts were issued based on, firstly, no cabinet approval. They could find no cabinet note approving those additional or renewal of contracts. And secondly, it was done on the cusp just before the 28th of April, when they were still in office. Now, I have argued, and I accept that, if somebody asked the question this morning on the ground report of me, that what is the situation when the parliament has been prorogued for the purposes of calling the general elections? What is the position with the incumbent government, the government that was there, that called the election? It's always the government that is there can call the election, not the opposition. So, yes, but it is converted to a caretaker government. They cannot make any major decisions. At least they ought not to make any major decisions. Because an election is, of course, there to determine whether or not they get back into office or some other party gets back into office or get into office or replace them. So you can't make any major. So here we go. So while on the one hand, I have argued that because the PNM accused the UNC just before the 2015 general election, Rowley was up and down the place saying that, of course, Shagarama's authority. Remember that? And then, of course, you had Caroni Green. And you had, of course, as well, the Shagarama's authority, I remember very distinctly, where contracts were given, of course, out to persons to occupy lands in Shagaramas. Remember that? And they were saying that not that the contracts were solid and in the benefit of the population, but that because it was on the cusp of the Friday before the elections, they ought not to do it. Well, they did the same damn thing. So I am saying that they could do it. But the point about it is the cabinet was still functioning. And the present government is saying that not only did they do that which was immoral and maybe a major decision, because we talk about hundreds of millions of dollars, the fact of the matter is that it was done without cabinet approval either. So therefore they are saying that those contracts that were entered into were null and void and of no effect. And therefore they call them in, the contractors, who would have been the beneficiary of this shenanigan, this sleight of hand by, of course, the PNM of the past. As Penelope Beckle said, she don't want to say a PNM government, so she say the government of the past. Listen to this. Listen to this.
Not unusual, this is expected, but the bottom line is that we have had a meeting this morning, and PNM in opposition, the government would have been there during the time that these contracts were issued. In opposition, the government would have been there during the time that these contracts were issued.
So notice the government that was there, she wanted to say it's the PNM. She played smart with foolishness. All she had to say to make it lucid and to make it obvious that the PNM that was there, and she would have had to, of course, or people would have had to make an association with the fact not only were they there, but it happened during the campaign. So it wasn't really the government as such, it was a caretaker arrangement. And they made that decision to renew those contracts. So she don't want to say how close it was to the election. Notice that. She's just saying that the government that was there. Listen again. Listen again.
The government would have been there during the time that these contracts were issued. Our position is we will do what is necessary in order to protect the interests of the contractors as well as the interests of the workers.
Right. So notice, again, talking about the contractors first. That's the only thing they could talk about. If they want a case, it's the contractors. 300. But they have to put in the other workers to project onto the population that 10,000 scenario that they are attempting, of course, to hoodwink, to gaslight, and to, of course, in a very deliberate. All of them are lawyers, so they know what they're doing. So I give them no credit. I give them no leeway that they are deliberately and conscientiously attempting to fool the workers and, of course, the people that they somehow could protect them. They cannot protect the 10,000 people. They cannot represent the 10,000 people. They could represent the 300 contractors who were politically lured by them to sign these contracts, hoping to frustrate clearly the incoming government when they realized that they were getting their backside whipped. They were being politically flagellated. Politically flagellated, and that is why that has come about. And they studiously try to commingle both of them, but one does not equate to the other. Let me tell that 10,000 people, the fact that the contractors went home with a month's pay. I don't know if it was, if it included, of course, what was for you, but if it was for you, you get your month's pay, and that clearly is a sign of a concerned government. If it was Rowley and them, they send you home with nothing. They send you home with nothing. Of course, you may make the argument that the petroleum workers went home with something. Well, they had no choice in that matter. They had no choice in that matter. It was too huge. It was too significant. It was too glaring. So they are very eclectic as to who they will take advantage of, as opposed to who they will not. For example, those public workers that were on contract, they didn't get no month, you know. They don't even have a sovereign pay to get. Sovereign's pay, you know, for working as they did, I'm sure, very hard. The contract comes to an end and they go home. In this particular case, of course, based on all of the circumstance, the government said take a month. So if it included, of course, I don't have the details, so I cannot vouch for, but if it is that it included, of course, the ordinary workers, then, of course, you are owed money from that for a month. While clearly the present government expeditiously replace these contractors so that the process can continue as it was before under new contractors. That's all, because those of you who have become expert or who have become reliant on CPEP, you are going to go to the new contractor. You will find the new contractor. You will, of course, know which contractor is in your community, and therefore you will, and I'm sure in these communities where, of course, the word of mouth, viva voce, is so crucial for information. Right here, for example, every morning we have increasing amount of persons coming because they heard of the employment facility that we have and some delivery of social service. So they are coming by way of mouth. We have not advertised, but they're coming. We have over 400 of them already. More than the 400 contractors that they send home to be replaced, of course, because of political appointment. And those who are replacing them, I assume, will have some kind of connection or consideration politically. Let us not waste time. And Penny said it. She said it's normal for, of course, political appointees to get out. She didn't say that in all those words, but that's what she meant. Nobody is stupid. And let's hear what this rapscallion Al-Rari had to say in his turn.
The pieces of action will include every range possible. Class action is not the only intended action. There'll be individual actions. There's high court, there's industrial court, there's public law, there's constitutional law. No stone will be left unturned.
So people, there we have it. There we have it. Of course, Al-Rari usually with his hyperboles, talking big, but of course saying nothing. Empty vessel make plenty noise. And we saw that, of course, when he, of course, attempted to project onto us that he is innocent of the Vincent Nelson scenario. When he projected, of course, that he know them children that was holding high-power rifles and so on a range somewhere in Trinidad. He know them. It Rowley had to say, well, that's your children, you know, so he disowned them. And of course, inside of all of that, we have to, of course, in closing, because it's already after 9:30, but I know I came late, so let me just, I may well want to go up to 10 o'clock on this occasion to compensate you, because I would have consumed your half an hour unproductively, meaning that I wasn't here. But the fact of the matter is that they are aware that the population is aware of the amount of recusal based on what? On family, friends that would have taken advantage of their presence in the cabinet to give them handsome contracts and therefore contribute to the depletion or the raiding of the treasury. Those were terms that were used regularly during the period 2015 up to the 28th of April this year about the PNM and its conduct. Of course, I've always said the classic exemplification of the fact that they have done harm to Trinidad and Tobago's treasury is Balize House. Because it was Rowley who said that he inherited a bankrupt PNM of over $5 million that they were owing when he took charge just before 2015. And in 9 years, they were able now to put down a monstrosity called Balize House, mounting to close to, and if not more than $100 million, as some experts would have said, in terms of what we are seeing there, 5 floors. Plus they renovate, of course, the old building. It appears that they're afraid to go inside today because I'm sure that it would have had enough accommodation to hold a special convention as they did, but instead they went to Town Hall. They went to Town Hall. They're afraid to go inside it because we have said that that is blood money. The building is red, blood is red. Blood money. That building has been, and we have the proof. Don't ask me to present it, before I get vexed and go until 11 o'clock, presenting the proof, Don't get me vexed. The fact of the matter is that that is the reality. And therefore, the term that is a bunch of opportunistic political parasites who would have, of course, morphed into a criminal enterprise, that of the PNM, the fragments of which is now in the lower house and in the parliament in general. comprising of the new boss or leader, Penelope Beckers. And I want you to observe and to take note as to whether she's a boss at all. Because you see people taking the mic and talking, first, second, and so on. Under Rowley, you couldn't have anybody else talking, presenting the case to, of course, the population. You're mad? One boss, and he asserted that nobody he believed could have talked like him. And this one, of course, believed, and not that it has gone beyond us, that she is not in charge, but people taking the mic just so and talking, including, of course, Al-Bahari, believing that somehow they're making sense more than that of the political leader who probably spoke less in terms of their intention, because she has to grapple with her conscience. You cannot equate the 300 contractors with that of the 10,000 workers. Worse yet, your so-called class action cannot include those workers. They are contracted by the contractors. So it's them had to take action against the contractor if any action has to take place. So, of course, what I'm suggesting to Penelope and her team, have a separate team of lawyers for the workers to, of course, bring action against those contractors, whilst you and your team come up against the government in terms of the contractors themselves, the 300. So 10,000 so, let them come up against the 300 contractors, and then, of course, you, Penny, and your team advocate for in court for the 300 against the government. That's all. But I mentioned, of course, in conclusion, the sinister motive. What is the sinister motive? The sinister motive here by that group of individuals is to try to bring the 300 and the 10,000 workers, the 300 contractors and the 10,000 workers, to be aligned or to be in sympathy with them, because they know that they have cocoa in the sun, as the old people would say. And as one caller said, the Bamsi palpitating. And every day that passes, the uncertainty is one that is typical of a person who, of course, has cocoa in the sun, who, of course, is paranoia or is paranoid, looking over the shoulder, because every day revelations are taking place, no action yet, but they know that the revelation will lead somewhere. And of course, the Attorney General, current Jeremy, has told them he will go to war with them and them and them and them. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, because what he said, I'll go to war with you, as I did, of course, reflect it in a video earlier last week. So people, what is the intention? The intention, of course, is to rile up, is to create chaos, is to generate discontent in the society. You see, because they're talking about marching. So that's the first stage. They talk about marching. They will get, of course, these 10,000 plus the 300 contractors to march against the government, obviously. And what they said to them, the government did to them. Well, I could tell them something. If it reached the marching, then I'm sure you will meet the counter marchers that will be in greater numbers than those workers or the contractors who would want to participate in your self-serving agenda. So you're using them to protect you from, of course, what is inevitable. And as the caller said, blue lights and silver bracelets. All of them. With very, very limited exception. All of them. With very, very limited exception. I say limited here because I don't expect in that dragnet for Marcel, for example, and the newcomer in Laventille East Movement. But all the rest are guilty as charged of being part of a criminal enterprise. And of course, now that they have ensnared, they have, of course, enveloped these younger ones who are so stupid. They're going down, telling themselves that somehow the PNM could rise again. No! They have become literally extinct. They have no relevance. They have become ocious. And therefore, any kind of incitement that they would try to generate, as they have done in the past, will be met with a solid and more forceful group of persons on the same street defending the government. Defending the government, yes. Because what is right and what is wrong is wrong. And will defend the government for their right to, of course, deal with those 300 contractors. And ultimately, the 10,000 workers, as they have identified, will eventually be re-employed. Re-employed. They ain't talking that talk. They've seen others that which is in them. They lie to the workers. They make them believe that those contracts are legit. And now, of course, they're trying, of course, to manifest, to concoct, to put square peg in round hole in order to defend their own iniquities and self-serving agendas. Let's go to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night.
All right. I'll call back. I'll call back on the private line.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm finishing up just now. Yes, indeed. So, people, we have come to the end of tonight's program. As I said, we're going to finish at past. I took a little more time than usual simply because I got up late. So let's end as we started. I think it's important, of course, to say that and sound a warning to Penelope Beckers and her team of rapscallions. And listen, party time is over. The UNC and the coalition of interest is here, and we are going to defend it to the hilt, the interests of the people. You have no moral, ethical, or legal authority so to do. You have failed in every respect.
Party time once again across the land. Anyway you pass, people they got out of hand.
PNM
with DJ
is
George
currently
and Robbie
assembling a team
in
of
front
senior attorneys, lawyers, to defend all of the contractors that have, as well as 10,000 employees who are employed within the organization. We're assembling a team of attorneys to offer free legal representation to all of the
Yes, indeed, people, of course. Don't forget tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Michael, and myself, and we are back here tomorrow night from 8 o'clock to 9:30. We are working towards, of course, breaking it down to 1 hour. So from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock eventually, maybe next week, because, of course, my tight schedule. and we have not been able to get a replacement as yet, but we will, and maybe change up the program a bit where we get, of course, the persons coming in order, of course, to give a different perspective and in 1 hour, of course, I have endless material for you to absorb. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Bye-bye.
Well, this is expected, but the bottom line is that we have had a meeting this morning, the government would have been there during the time that these contracts were issued. Our position is what is necessary in order to protect.
Time was drawing near to announce the big fete. Georgie decided to make everybody